Hello and welcome, wherever you are in your journey. Whether you're chasing a dream, rebuilding from nothing, or quietly wondering if more is possible, I'm glad you're here. Today, we're stepping into one of the most influential self-mastery books ever written, but not through dry analysis or lists of principles. This is a story, a quiet walk through the invisible architecture of success. Think and Grow Rich begins not with action, but with a question. What is it that you truly want? Not the polite answer, not the vague daydream, but the kind of desire that burns in your chest, keeps you up at night, and reappears no matter how many times you bury it. That's where everything starts. If you find this summary helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to BookSnap, and comment below the title of the book you'd like us to summarize next. We'll make it happen soon. Now, let's begin the journey. It begins in stillness. A man sits alone at his kitchen table. No money, no favor, no legacy behind him. Just a flicker in his chest, the feeling that he was meant for more. Not because someone told him so, not because he inherited anything, but because he wanted it. That's what Napoleon Hill calls desire, the starting point of all achievement. But not just any desire, not a wish, not a passing interest. This kind is obsessive, sometimes irrational. It's the thing you can't stop thinking about, even if it hasn't shown up yet. Hill tells the story of Edwin C. Barnes. He had no money, no connections, but one burning intention: to become business partners with Thomas Edison. Not an employee, a partner. Everyone else would have laughed. But he didn't ask them. He bought a train ticket he couldn't afford, showed up at Edison's office with nothing but determination in his voice. Edison saw something in his eyes. Not experience, not brilliance, but intensity. That was enough. For 5 years, Barnes worked humbly for Edison, doing routine tasks. And then an opportunity came. A new invention. No one else believed in it. But Barnes did. He stepped up, sold it with passion, and earned his place beside Edison, not by luck, but by the slow, steady burn of his desire. That's what Hill means when he says, "There is a difference between wishing for a thing and being ready to receive it." Barnes didn't just want it. He made space for it. Mentally, emotionally, practically. Desire, in Hill's words, must become definite. You have to know exactly what you want. Not just more money. How much? By when? For what purpose? What are you willing to give in return? These aren't just exercises in goal setting. They're declarations to the unconscious mind. They begin the process of reshaping your inner world to match the outer one you're creating. Because money, as Hill gently reminds us, is never the point. Money is a symbol of growth, freedom, service, expression. And unless your desire is rooted in something meaningful, it will never endure the silence, the setbacks, the long nights of doubt. So let me ask you, right now, what do you want so much that you'd keep going, even if no one clapped? That's the seed of desire. That's the quiet signal to life that says, "I'm ready." But desire alone is not enough. How many people want something badly, but never move, never believe? That's where the second piece begins to form, the invisible bridge from want to belief. It's not built in public, it's built in silence. But for now, remember this. The dream begins in stillness, in longing, in fire. And all the world that seems indifferent, begins to shift when your desire becomes a decision. Because if you truly decide, life will notice. It may not be easy, it may not be fast, but something ancient, something quiet, begins to move in your favor. And it all starts with that whisper. I want this. I will have it. I do not know how yet, but I am no longer asking for permission. Somewhere along the way, life teaches us to doubt. We speak of dreams in hushed tones. We call them unrealistic, childish. We learn to flinch before we even try, to lower our expectations before life can do it for us. And so many of us sit quietly, not because we don't want more, but because we're not sure if we're allowed to believe in it. Napoleon Hill offers something quietly radical. You must believe before there is proof. That belief isn't magical thinking. It's not a trick. It's a muscle, and it must be trained. When Hill writes about faith, he isn't speaking in religious terms. He means something far more personal, a deep emotional conviction that what you desire is possible for you, and not just possible, inevitable. But how do you believe in something you can't yet see? Start small. Start internally. Start with a voice that narrates your day, every day, because that voice is shaping your identity, whether you know it or not. Hill explains that faith is born through repetition. What you say to yourself, with feeling, becomes what you believe about yourself, and what you believe dictates what you will try, what you will risk, and what you will become. This isn't poetic. It's neurological. The subconscious mind responds to emotion and repetition. Say something often enough with enough feeling, and the brain will begin to treat it as real. And so we must feed the mind a new story, one that overrides the static of doubt. Hill offers a simple, powerful ritual. Every morning and every night, repeat aloud your definite goal. Visualize it. Feel it. Speak it as if it is already yours. This isn't about pretending. It's about programming. You're not faking belief. You're building it. Imagine someone standing before a mirror each day, not admiring themselves, but creating themselves. Word by word, emotion by emotion. Not, I wish I was confident, but I am the kind of person who makes powerful decisions. Not, someday I'll be wealthy, but I am creating wealth through value, courage, and service. It's awkward at first. You'll feel like a fraud. But that discomfort, that's the sound of old beliefs cracking open. That's your mind noticing something new. Because the truth is, you've already been hypnotized by the voices of parents, peers, society, even your own past. Those messages play on loop. I'm not ready. I'm not smart enough. I don't deserve it. And without realizing it, we rehearse our limitations until they feel like facts. But Hill gives us the key. You can hypnotize yourself in the other direction. Start feeding your mind a different story. With emotion, with persistence. Not once. Every day. This is the quiet work. The invisible effort. No one claps when you rewrite your self-talk. No one sees when you stare into the mirror and say words that feel like lies. But this is where new futures are born. In the silence of your own mind. In the space between, I don't believe this yet, and I'm going to say it anyway. Let's return to Barnes, the man who partnered with Edison. Before that ever happened, he already saw himself as Edison's partner. In his mind, that role wasn't a distant hope. It was already true, and the world slowly caught up to match his inner reality. You don't wait for life to prove your worth before you believe it. You believe it until life has no choice but to rearrange around your certainty. Hill writes, faith is the only known antidote for failure. And maybe that's what most of us are really afraid of. Not failure, but believing too much. We fear that if we allow ourselves to believe, we'll be crushed when it doesn't happen. But what if the real risk is the opposite? What if the cost of disbelief is never discovering what was possible? Belief is not a guarantee of success, but disbelief is a guarantee of mediocrity. So start speaking the future you want. Speak it awkwardly. Speak it nervously. Speak it daily. And one day, you'll look back and realize you became what you believed. By now, you've felt the flicker of desire and the steady burn of faith. Now comes the moment when thought itself becomes substance, when the words you whisper to yourself shape the reality you live. Napoleon Hill calls it autosuggestion, the practice of feeding your mind repeated ideas until they become inseparable from your identity. Imagine a sculptor before a block of marble. He doesn't see rough stone. He envisions the finished form hidden within. Each chisel strike brings the vision closer to reality. In the same way, your mind can be carved and shaped by the words you choose. Each affirmation a precision tool, chipping away old narratives and revealing the person you intend to become. In a small, dimly lit room, a writer sits at her desk. She's working on her first novel, but the pages remain blank. Self-doubt knocks at her door, reminding her of every rejection she's faced. Today, though, she's armed with a new ritual. Every morning, before coffee, she opens her journal and writes, "I am a storyteller whose words inspire millions." She reads it aloud, feeling the syllables roll off her tongue like a promise. At night, she closes her eyes and hears her own voice echoing, "My stories transport readers to new worlds." She doesn't yet have a publisher. She doesn't yet have an audience. But every affirmation lays another brick in the foundation of her confidence. Over weeks, her doubts lose their grip. The pen moves more freely across the paper. Characters come alive. The story, once stalled, flows with ease. Hill warns that autosuggestion is no mere pep talk. It demands intensity and feeling. A whispered phrase without emotion is like watering seeds that never sprout. Instead, you must feel the statement as if it's already true, flooding your mind with sensation. Your subconscious doesn't differentiate between a remembered event and a vividly imagined one. It records what your emotions broadcast. Consider the tale of a young inventor who believed his device could change an industry. He had sketches, prototypes, and technical skill, but no factory. Each night he lay in bed and saw himself walking through his own manufacturing plant, shaking hands with employees, watching machines hum. He listened to the steady hum of production and smelled the metal and oil. With each visualized detail, his conviction deepened. Eventually, investors caught the same vision, funding the factory that seemed to exist only in his dreams. This is the crux of autosuggestion. Internal visualization plus repeated affirmation equals new belief. And belief, in turn, catalyzes action. Because once you feel worthy and capable, you start to behave in ways that align with that self-image. Doors that were once hidden become visible pathways. Conversations that once felt impossible occur naturally. Your very posture shifts. You stand taller, speak with calm assurance, and attract the opportunities that match your new identity. But autosuggestion can also work in reverse. If you repeat doubts, "I'm not good enough," "I'll never succeed," you reinforce self-limiting scripts that grow more powerful with each replay. That's why Hill dedicates a chapter to clearing the air, banishing negative self-talk and replacing it with statements that serve your goals. Here's a practical framework, distilled from Hill's teaching. Define your chief aim. Write your specific goal in clear, present-tense language. Add feeling. Beside it, jot down why it matters emotionally. Security, freedom, joy, contribution. Affirm daily. Read the statement aloud, with conviction, at least twice a day. Morning and night. Visualize details. Close your eyes and see the circumstances around your success. Where you are, who's there, how it feels. Record progress. Note any inner shifts or outer opportunities that emerge. Proof that the subconscious is at work. Mastering this seems deceptively simple, but it demands discipline. You won't feel the shift on day one. Doubt will still creep in, but each day you persist, you're reinforcing a neural pathway that rewrites what you believe about yourself. Hill shares the story of a corporate executive who struggled with public speaking. His palms would sweat, voice tremble, and he'd avoid presentations at all costs. After studying Think and Grow Rich, he applied autosuggestion. Each time he felt anxiety rising, he recited, "I communicate with clarity and confidence." He imagined the audience leaning forward, nodding, smiling. He did this before every meeting, every call, every written email. Within months, his fear receded and was replaced by calm assurance. Eventually, he led a keynote presentation to hundreds, commanding the room not by force, but by the invisible momentum of his own belief. You might ask, what if I don't feel the words when I say them? That's normal. Feigned emotion at first can feel hollow, but emotion can follow action. When you continue the ritual, even mechanically, you signal your subconscious that these statements deserve attention, and over time, the feelings catch up. You'll surprise yourself with genuine warmth, excitement, and certainty when you speak your affirmations. In effect, you're teaching your heart to believe what your mind declares. Notice how autosuggestion, faith, and desire intertwine. You desire a change so deeply that you believe in it before it exists, and you autosuggest continuously until your belief is indistinguishable from reality. The three legs of this tripod support each other, creating an inner structure strong enough to carry you through doubt, setbacks, and delays. Yet, Hill warns against complacency. Autosuggestion isn't wishful thinking. It must be paired with definiteness of purpose and organized planning, which we'll explore next. Otherwise, you risk dreaming without doing, speaking without building. But for now, carry this with you. The voice within isn't a passive observer. It's an active architect of your future. Every word you speak, every image you feel, lays another tile on the path you will walk. And the more intentional you are with those words, the clearer the path becomes. Imagine standing before a blank canvas stretched tight in an empty loft, shafts of morning light cutting through dust motes. Your mind is both gallery and workshop. Shelves of facts, theories, and memories line one wall, while the opposite wall remains clear, waiting for creation. This is the crossroads where knowledge meets imagination and where true innovation is born. Napoleon Hill calls this meeting the alchemy of thought. He insists that facts alone cannot forge wealth any more than raw metal transforms into gold without the crucible of the furnace and the skill of the artisan. Likewise, imagination without information can drift aimlessly, like a sail untethered. But when organized knowledge and vivid imagination converge, they spark the ideas that reshape industries and transform lives. In the story Hill shares of a small-town architect, the man had studied every textbook on structural engineering. His notebooks overflowed with equations, case studies, and building codes. Yet, when the commission came to design a landmark bridge, he hesitated. The specifications alone felt cold, pipes and steel measured by inch and ton. So he closed his books and stared into the night sky, noting how the constellations traced patterns of connectivity and flow. He saw the way light arced between stars, how gravity shaped their dance. Then, with that cosmic metaphor in his mind, he returned to the drawing table. He sketched curves and supports that mirrored those celestial lines, creating a bridge both strong and breathtakingly elegant. That was imagination guiding knowledge, and knowledge grounding imagination. Hill warns that many people collect information like squirrels hoard nuts in autumn, ensuring they'll have something to eat, but never tasting it. Data becomes a burden if it's not woven into something new. He urges us to organize our knowledge like a library with a precise catalog. Every fact has its place, every insight its folder, accessible when inspiration strikes. This way, when you face a blank canvas, your mind doesn't scramble through chaos. It reaches straight for the ingredients you need. Visualize another scene. A nurse in a remote clinic, facing a new disease outbreak. She's studied virology in textbooks, but this pathogen is different. She recalls a documentary about solar panels, how layered semiconductors harness photons. In that layering concept, she sees a metaphor for combining drug compounds that sequentially block the virus's entry and replication. Her first trial succeeds. Later, others refine her approach, but the seed was planted by her imaginative leap. Here, imagination acts as a prism, bending the light of raw knowledge into a spectrum of possibility. Hill offers practical exercises to strengthen this creative process. He suggests daily mind walk sessions. Choose a problem you want to solve and alternate between gathering relevant facts and letting your mind wander freely. Note every stray thought, however eccentric. Then sift through the ideas. picking those that blend new angles with established truths. Over time, you become both librarian and explorer, fluent in the language of discovery. And it's not only about technical know-how. Hill reminds us that emotion infuses ideas with urgency. A community organizer who studied sociology and urban design might hear dry statistics about neighborhood decline. But if she imagines children running safely to school, gardens blooming in vacant lots, and neighbors greeting each other with warmth, the data shifts from abstraction to a vivid panorama. That feeling becomes fuel, inspiring her to rally volunteers and secure funding. One of Hill's most compelling examples comes from Andrew Carnegie himself. Carnegie had amassed knowledge of steel production through relentless study, but his imagination took shape as a vision, steel rails stretching across continents, linking cities and economies. He saw not only the technical process, but the social transformation it enabled. That vision carried him beyond the factory floor into boardrooms and legislative halls, where he negotiated deals that would have seemed impossible without an overarching dream driving every detail. Hill distills Carnegie's approach into 3 steps. Gather mastery. Collect specialized information from reliable sources. Brainstorm fearlessly. Enter a state of creative surrender, where even wild ideas are allowed. Synthesize boldly. Fuse the best facts with the most imaginative angles, then test until the concept holds. Picture yourself applying this now. Maybe you're crafting a new service, writing a novel, or launching a community project. First, assemble your knowledge. Read books, talk to experts, absorb the nuts and bolts. Then, set aside your notebook. Step outside, close your eyes, and let your thoughts drift. Notice what connections spark, like 2 puzzle pieces clicking into place. Sketch rough outlines. Even if they seem impractical, they may lead to unexpected refinements. Finally, tether those creative flashes back to reality. Outline a plan to test, prototype, or pitch the idea. This sacred cycle, knowledge, imagination, organization, becomes the engine of progress. Yet Hill cautions against blind faith in creativity alone. Without clear objectives, imagination can scatter like wind-blown leaves. That's why each idea must connect back to your definite major purpose, the goal you etched with burning desire and faith. Imagination without purpose is entertainment. Imagination with purpose becomes destiny. He writes, "The imagination is literally the workshop wherein are fashioned all plans created by man." In other words, your mind's eye is the smithy where visions are hammered into shape. But you control the forge. As you move forward, keep these questions close. What specific knowledge do I need to master for my goal? How can I structure that knowledge so it's instantly retrievable? In solitude, what images and metaphors arise when I focus on my problem? How can I merge those images with my facts to generate a novel solution? What's my next concrete step to test this idea in the real world? These prompts guide you through the alchemy. They remind you that true wealth flows from the union of thought and information, enlivened by emotion and anchored in purpose. When next you face that blank canvas, whether on paper, in a spreadsheet, or within your own team, remember the architect under starlight, the nurse and her layered compounds, Carnegie and his steel rails. Their secret wasn't genius alone, but a practiced process, feeding the flame of imagination with the oxygen of knowledge. That is the alchemy Napoleon Hill invites you to master. And once you do, you'll see that your own life is an evolving tapestry, woven from threads of what you know and what you dare to dream. By the time we reach the midpoint of our journey, you may feel the weight of choice pressing on your chest. Desires have sparked, faith has ignited, autosuggestion has carved new pathways, and imagination has drawn the way forward. Yet, between those dawn visions and dusk realities lies a gauntlet no less crucial, the power of decision and the relentless push of persistence. Decision is more than mere selection. It is a solemn vow, etched into the quiet chambers of your mind, that says, This is the path I choose, and I will see it through. Without this vow, the currents of circumstance easily sweep you away, leaving you adrift on regrets and unfulfilled potential. Napoleon Hill learned this lesson by observing men of action, people who didn't linger in indecision, who grasped an opportunity and honored it with unshakable commitment. He contrasts them with those who continually weigh pros and cons, only to see their chances evaporate as they deliberate. Picture a young entrepreneur, Anna, standing before the threshold of her own pop-up cafe. She's spent months researching recipes, scouting locations, and crunching numbers. Yet each time she almost signs the lease, doubts crowd her mind. What if sales are slow? What if I lose my savings? One evening, she attends a community gathering where a mentor shares Hill's words. Procrastination, the opposite of decision, is a common enemy which must be conquered. The statement reverberates through her. Procrastination is not a neutral act. It is active resistance to her own dreams. And so, in the glow of string lights and soft chatter, Anna makes her first true decision. She signs the lease, hands trembling, heart pounding. That moment, simple as it seems, becomes the hinge on which her future turns. Decision without persistence often falters under the first storm. A vow means nothing if you abandon it at the first sign of difficulty. Hill illustrates this with the story of Charles M. Schwab, who once paid a steel plant manager $5,000 not for a finished product, but for demonstrating that he could sustain continuous output for 30 consecutive days, a feat no one believed possible. Schwab's instruction: keep the furnaces burning day and night, whatever it takes. The manager faced breakdowns, strikes, and raw material shortages. Yet he persisted, adjusting schedules, cajoling workers, repairing equipment. On the 30th day, the furnaces still blazed. Schwab paid him, not as a trophy, but as an acknowledgement that persistence, day after day, builds the walls of success. Persistence is the silent heartbeat behind every triumph. It's what stokes the furnace when enthusiasm cools, when early excitement fades into routine, and when unforeseen setbacks appear. Hill outlines 6 ways to develop persistence, a definite purpose backed by burning desire. When your why is strong, your how gains momentum. A definite plan, expressed through continuous action. Small, consistent steps compound over time. A mind closed to all negative and defeating influences. Shield your purpose from naysayers and internal criticism. A friendly alliance with one or more persons who will encourage you to follow through. A support system of believers. A regular schedule of self-discipline exercises. Reinforce willpower until it becomes second nature. A positive mental attitude. Optimism doesn't ignore problems, it trusts in solutions. In practice, this looks like a daily grind. The writer who faces rejection letter after letter, yet mails the next manuscript with the same hope. The startup founder who navigates failed prototypes, funding dry spells and team conflicts, yet refines the model and pitches again. The athlete who trains through injury and fatigue, inching closer to peak form one repetition at a time. Consider the life of Colonel Sanders, founder of KFC. In his 60s, he traveled America by car, sleeping in motels and eating in diners. He approached restaurant owners to sell his chicken recipe. Over 1,000 rejections later, he finally struck a deal. His persistence, rooted in a belief that people deserved his product, made his name and brand a household word. Yet, Hill cautions, persistence is not blind stubbornness. It requires adaptation. You must know when to bend strategy without breaking commitment. The steel plant manager adjusted shifts. Colonel Sanders modified his cooking equipment. Anna, the cafe owner, pivoted her menu after early customers craved local flavors. Persistence means listening to feedback and refining tactics while refusing to abandon the core aim. This balance between flexibility and steadfastness is an art. It's not surrendering your vow. It's finding new roads to the same destination. Decision and persistence also shape your character. Each small victory over procrastination, each morning you rise despite fatigue, fortifies your self-trust. Over time, you become the kind of person who follows through, not because you're inherently disciplined, but because your identity is anchored in reliability. And, as Hill notes, a reputation for persistence becomes an asset in itself, attracting partners, investors, and opportunities. Here's a simple framework to cultivate these twin forces. Declare your decision. Write down your core choice, your definite major purpose, and pledge a deadline. Map the steps. Outline a plan with daily or weekly actions. Track progress. Keep a journal or dashboard to record wins and lessons from setbacks. Enlist allies. Share your plan with mentors or peers who commit to check in on your progress. Review and adapt. Weekly, evaluate what's working and pivot where necessary. Celebrate small wins. Acknowledging progress fuels the spirit of persistence. When Anna traces her cafe's modest growth, it's not the grand openings that sustain her. It's the quiet mornings when she unlocks the door, greets her first customer by name, and feels that vow she made light her path forward. When Schwab's furnace manager checks the temperature at dawn and finds the sparks still flying, he remembers that no storm, bureaucratic or mechanical, could extinguish his commitment. Decision is the lever, persistence, the fulcrum. Together, they amplify your will, channeling raw desire into tangible progress. Without decision, you drift. Without persistence, you collapse. But with both, you forge a path through any resistance, turning every setback into a lesson and every doubt into a prompt to act. So, pause now and take stock. What decisions have you deferred? Which vows remain unspoken? And how will you nurture your persistence in the days ahead? Because at this midpoint, it's not talent or luck that will carry you forward. It's the unbreakable promise you make to yourself, day after day. Even the greatest architects of history have rarely built alone. There is a hidden current beneath every monumental achievement, a convergence of minds that amplifies ideas and injects them with energy. Napoleon Hill calls this the mastermind alliance, a symphony of intention where two or more people harmonize their talents, insights, and enthusiasm toward a single purpose. Picture a midnight workshop where three friends gather around a cluttered table strewn with blueprints, tools, and hopeful sketches. Each one carries a different gift. One sees the grand vision, another maps the practical steps, and the third sparks enthusiasm when weariness seeps in. In that room, no single mind holds the full key. Instead, their combined spark ignites a fire that none could kindle alone. Hill's studies revealed that the most successful figures in history, from Edison and Ford to Carnegie and Rockefeller, didn't shy away from collaboration. They intentionally sought out allies who could challenge their blind spots, fill gaps in their knowledge, and fuel their resolve when doubts threatened to extinguish the flame. Consider the alliance between Thomas Edison and Henry Ford. Edison, the prolific inventor, had the restless curiosity to push boundaries. Ford, the visionary industrialist, possessed the boldness to scale innovations into factories that hummed day and night. When they met, their friendship became a crucible. Ford's daring plans tested Edison's technical prowess, and Edison's inventions inspired Ford's production methods. Together, they prodded each other into breakthroughs neither could have reached in isolation. But mastermind alliances aren't limited to titans of industry. They can be as simple as two neighbors pooling their strengths to renovate a community garden, or three artists whose varied mediums blend into a living mural. The key isn't fame or fortune, it's shared commitment and mutual respect. Hill outlines 4 pillars to craft your own alliance. Common, definite purpose. All members must share the same goal. A mastermind is not a social club, but a purposeful assembly. Mutual trust and openness. Vulnerability is the currency of collaboration. You must be willing to disclose your challenges and receptive to honest feedback. Balanced contribution. Each person brings their unique skills and resources. No one lords over the others. Instead, everyone gives and receives value. Regular sessions. Consistency builds synergy. Whether weekly or monthly, these meetings become the fertile soil where ideas germinate. Imagine you're launching a social enterprise to bring clean water to